the Brandon Routh Kingdom Come Superman costume from the Crisis crossover on the CW. And we have an interesting look at this very iconic costume with Brandon Routh there standing with hands on hips in a awesome pose with a bit of graying at the temples of his hair. So let's go in, starting as we do with the cape. Love the way this cape tucks in under the collar, as you can tell from our recent coverage, although you probably can't tell because those videos aren't available anymore, how much I love the fact that the cape tucks in under collars. Much preferred way for me that this attaches to the costume.
Yeah, and it sits right as well. It's not uneven. It's not too poofy. I've been watching a lot of season 4 of Lois and Clark, and the cape on that costume tended to get a little like it's almost like when your hair gets out of control. Maybe I'm talking to two people that don't understand this, but
well, if I take my hat off, you'll see. I know.
But still, the way the cape sits, the way the cape like the length of the cape, everything about it I like.
Yeah, it's an iconic cape. I mean, they really went all out, I think, with all of this. But the cape is just, like you said, sits right. It's the right length. I like the colors perfect. It's just, wow, I just love looking at it. The way it's blowing like that. I really like this cape.
Yeah, it is. It's just awesome. Everything is perfect about it. Length, color, weight, holds on to the costume, all works really well. And then you've got the body of the costume. It's pretty much a blue spandex, but it does have that kind of bit of a print to it. It's not just plain blue. It's not just clear. It's got a bit of embossing on it, a bit of a print, as I said, a bit of a pattern. But that's okay because it's not over and done. It's not over embellished.
Yeah, no, I usually, got distracted with something that shouldn't have gotten distracted with. I think the texture of most of the other costumes we're talking about, like you said, is a little on the nose or a little too apparent. Here, the only reason I'm noticing any texture is because you're highlighting it. In the show itself, you didn't notice it at all, which I really, really liked. It's funny that this is the promotional picture and it's not the best shot of him in the costume, which is kind of weird that you would think they would want to put that forward. Like his chest is sticking out like really high on this one, but no, I just like how the blue. Yeah, that's a much better one. See, with that, you don't notice the texture at all. It just looks like a blue tunic that has a good royal color to it.
Marc?
Yeah, no, I don't mind the texture. Again, in the show, you really don't notice it, but I think also part of what gets me with this was then, Brandon Routh in the Superman Returns costume. I mean, it shows such a long torso. You don't notice that as much with this. I think the color is spot on. It's, we don't want it that bright and we certainly don't want it dark. And it's just a beautiful looking color, I mean, it just looks like the color kind of you'd see in the comics or you saw maybe when we read Kingdom Come. It just looks really good. And I just, the texture is fine. It's only noticeable again because we could see it gigantic. But it's, even if they wanted to really be noticeable, it's not distracting. It's not made of a bunch of S's. It's not, it just looks really nice.
Now, if I do have one problem with this costume, it is the symbol. Not the shape of it, not the design of it, but the fact that it is an applique, like that it is a solid piece that is put on, which kind of goes in with the fact that Brandon Routh wore a similar, although a smaller version, that was a solid piece in Superman Returns. Here, it looks like some of those edges, especially at the bottom there, could, pretty much hurt you if you're, if Brandon Routh's like doing crunches or something like that.
Yeah,
That bottom,
Denzel.
that's gonna pierce his stomach. Though he's Superman, so it probably won't. But yeah, it's large, which is an Alex Ross thing, and that's what this is based on, is an Alex Ross design. The symbol does go pretty much from armpit to armpit. I don't mind. I mean, it's the Kingdom Come symbol, so I'm not going to even talk about the design of the S. It's just that for me, I don't like the solid plastic, metal, whatever you want to call it. I rather where the S is part of the material, part of the costume.
It's weird because for me, it really depends on the lighting and the shot. Like here, it is very apparent, just because of the shadows and all that, of how three-dimensional the thing is. There, it looks a little flatter. One of the earlier pictures that you were showing to show off the cape, you don't really notice it as much. And there's that scene where he comes back from the universe he couldn't save, and he's pounding the ground, and he puts his hand near it. It didn't really distract there. So with me, it's like, I don't know if this sounds weird. It all depends on the shot that if it bothers me or not.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I agree. I mean, I've said before, I don't like the 3DS. I'm never a fan of 3DS, and I certainly didn't like it in Superman Returns. Would I rather it be more embossed or more into the costume? Sure, but again, because we're not arguing with the S shape itself. It's the Kingdom Come S, and it looks fantastic. Yeah, in different shots, it does look a little different, and I think, the way I don't know the decision, of course, why they made it like this. When they filmed it, whether they would have rather have gotten different angles to make it look a little differently, I don't know. But the whole thing is, it's more of a 3D image, which I don't love. But at the same time, the rest of the costume and the style of the S is just perfect. So it doesn't bother me that much. It really doesn't.
Something interesting that I've noticed, if you look at the upcoming Superman movie, very similar. Obviously, of course, we know it's the Kingdom Come, but the top and the right, yeah, I guess they're still very much there. There is a curve at the bottom here that kind of indicates the bottom of an S, but that's very straight on this. But nevertheless, just thought I'd kind of compare the two while we had them up on the screen. So that's the S symbol. Now we look at the trunks and the belt. I love the black belt with the gold buckle. Obviously, we're going with that kind of whole motif. It's a belt. It's like it's almost like a belt you would be wearing at home with your jeans. It's other than the gold belt buckle, which hey, you might go for that kind of style. But there's a belt, and there's and you mentioned earlier, Mark, about the torso, about in Superman Returns being so long. I think it has a lot to do with the trunks. Here, the trunks are not Speedos like they were in Superman Returns. Here, the trunks go further down the thigh and maybe a little bit higher up on the waist.
Yeah, definitely.
No, go ahead, Mark.
No, definitely. They're longer trunks, and they don't look baggy either. With the belt, if you go from the end of the S, the tip of the bottom of the S, until you get to the belt and the trunks, it's definitely one of the reasons why the torso isn't so long. In Superman Returns, because it was almost bikini sized, you noticed it. Here, you don't notice it, and I think, as a whole, especially like I said, the trunks are not baggy, because a lot of times the trunks could be a little baggy if they're a little bigger. These are they fit just right. I like the black belt, which normally, I don't love a black belt, especially on Superman, because the motif, obviously Kingdom Come. I just think the whole thing looks really good.
Yeah, I think they're right into the butter zone of the trunks, which is a really weird sentence to say. I wasn't planning that. When it came out, it was like, that's weird. No, because I was actually talking about this with my wife, who really dislikes the new costume from the new movie. So we've been having a lot of discussions about it, not arguments, because I'm not going to argue with my wife about a Superman costume. That's really stupid. But one of her problems are the trunks, and I'm like, well, and I showed her the All-Star Superman costume, and we're really getting into that kind of, since we've been looking at all these costumes, it's really the difference in the Speedo look, the kind of weightlifter, 30s era muscle man
Strong
trunks.
man, yeah.
Here we're right in the middle of that. And I am glad that they're a little higher, because Brandon Routh is a very tall man, and he is a man that, if you look at him in the Superman Returns costume, he seems to be 90% torso. And here you don't get that, which I really like.
Then we get down to the boots, which are very much a leather boot with the big dip of the V at the front. It's a lot more of a V. It's a wider V. It goes around to the side of the foot of the leg. I'm never usually a big fan of the leather look type of work boot, slip it on type of thing. I like it when it's a bit more streamlined. But I mean, that's just part of what the costumes do these days. They don't necessarily make them like dancers' shoes like they did back in the 50s and late 40s. Even the Christopher Reeve costume didn't seem as so much like a leather boot, but I guess that's what they're going with in more modern times. And it's not a bad look. I like the shape of the boots. They just look a lot too much like a work boot for my liking. More like a lady's boot.
I don't know if I would say ladies' boot. They got more of a cowboy look.
Yeah.
Look
That's
to them.
good call.
Which I don't necessarily see as Superman. I appreciate, though, that they put the effort to do the V cut, even though it's not. I think this is a boot, though, that looks much better from the front. It seems like whenever they show it from the side, it looks kind of squat. It's kind of a weird. It's just the angle of the photo, I guess, when they're shooting it. Not as bad as like some of the Tyler Hoechlin shots from the side, but I think from the front they look really slick. I don't mind the leather look. I think some other costumes, like the Dean Cain, there was a Dean Cain boot that laced up, and I'm like, wow, that must have just taken forever. Excuse me. But no, other than that, I really don't have too many complaints with the boots.
If there's one part of the suit that I have to say I like the least, I'd say the boots. But even that, I said I don't like the work boot look. But even so, it's just, it doesn't bother me with this. It just seems, it's not the best aspect of the whole suit, but the V looks good. Again, they're going with the leather boot, not the more, ballet style kind of look, but no, it doesn't bother me that much. It's not my favorite part, but I can't really complain that much about it.
And then we've got Brandon Routh himself. We spoke about him when we were talking about him in Superman Returns costume analysis. Here they've just got a bit more of the greying hairstyle. His hair's not as wet look, not as slicked back. The S isn't as forced as it was in that movie, but you gotta love Brandon Routh as the Kingdom Come Superman.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I have nothing more.
Yeah. I am trying to figure out how in that one picture, I don't know if they did something to it. It looks like he's got like the Fleischer squinty eyes when he's photographed with Hoechlin. But no, he's it's funny how the hair looks different. Like in that promo shot, it looks more like a hairpiece.
Yeah.
Whereas in the shot you just had up, it actually it looks more natural. I don't know if the graying looks as natural as it could, but there's so much I like about this look and this costume and the fact that he was even Superman in this thing in the first place that I'm cutting it metric yards of slack.
Yeah, now I give this a 9 out of 10.
I'm giving it a 10.
I'm gonna be with Steve. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. It's almost a perfect costume, but but like the problems with it are so minor, that it's not like you don't take off more points.
Exactly.